We have to contextualize these numbers. We have to understand when we're saying 100 and is it 110, 111?
Yes.
When we're talking about 111, these 111, how many people are married in Namibia and what percentage of married people is the 111? Because when we know the percentage of the married people, then we would be able to say whether this is a large number or a small number in consideration when we're looking at the population. So that information is missing. The other information that's also missing is what are the reasons that were cited for the divorce? Because this is not giving us a full picture in terms of why and what it is. But having said that, my understanding in the absence of that information is that relationships in Namibia are strained. And when the relationships are strained, it does not necessarily mean it reduces commitment. It's just that relationships are strained, and we have to start looking at what are the reasons that relationships are strained.
Now, many experts say couples are entering marriage without proper preparation. Why is emotional and psychological readiness so important before getting married?
I think because getting into a marriage and expecting that the marriage itself is going to fix or create stability is a myth, right? When people get into relationships, not just marriage, I'm a great believer that situations
Community. Thank you.
reveal people. So marriages also reveal people. The marriage does not make you who you become. It just reveals who you've been before you got married. So when you get in the relationship, you come with your baggage. And if you are not aware of what your baggage is, then those things would be highlighted, be triggered more. You don't get into a marriage with an unwritten contract of not knowing what you're bringing to the marriage, what the other person's needs are, etc. So I think, why is it that we write exams for everything? We go to university to prepare ourselves for life and for work and everything, but yet we don't invest as much time in knowing what it is like to be married and how to actually have healthy marriages and the preparation that's needed for that.
Mm.
Because we get ready for everything and we assume that when we say yes to marriage, everything would be fixed by the mere fact that we have said yes to marriage.
Now, economic pressure is also cited as a major factor. How do financial stress and unemployment affect the mental health of couples and the stability of marriages?
Well, in the past, I think our parents and our grandparents maybe got married for totally different reasons.
Mm.
They were also living in different times with different stresses. I think that modern couples are going through a lot more stresses because there's just so much that they have to juggle with in modern life. Um, the level of stress that they have to deal with running homes, economic times that have forced two people to work in order to make ends meet, which was not the case maybe for most people and their parents, because mom could afford to be at home and dad could go and work. Now modern economy expects couples to maybe go and work, and as well as the fact that maybe unemployment is also very high in Namibia, and it puts a lot of couples under a lot of financial strain as well. So the roles, therefore, are mixed. People go into marriages expecting that you're going to be the provider, but the economic situation does not warrant that. People get into relationships with assuming that you're just going to know what my role is going to be and what your role is going to be without having that conversation about those expectations. So people also get disappointed, because they go in with expectations, and then when their needs are not met, then that could lead to a lot of strain as well. So maybe people need to have those conversations about what is your role, and the roles are going to be different depending on who the couple is.
Now, infidelity continues to be a leading cause of divorce. From a psychological standpoint, what often drives partners to be unfaithful?
A lot of things.
Mm,
Um, Emotional disconnection,
mm,
unmet needs, poor boundaries, unresolved trauma, a desire for validation, personality types. And I would stress out that people who are narcissistic tend to have serial infidelity issues. So narcissists tend to cheat more than most of the other personality types, like in terms of when you have a personality issue, people who are narcissistic would be not necessarily monogamous. Not everyone, but most narcissists just tend to be serial cheaters.
mm. Now, communication is often highlighted as key in relationships. What communication breakdowns do you commonly see among couples heading towards divorce?
Um, Criticism instead of expressing needs, defensiveness and refusal to take responsibility, contempt, sarcasm, disrespect, um, positioning oneself as superior, you're too sensitive, what do you know, etc., etc. Stonewalling, which is the emotional withdrawal or silent treatment. So those are red flags, and those are um, predictors of future divorce. In actual fact, there's a study that was done in Seattle a long time ago where a psychologist could predict with certainty, looking at how couples communicated and whether some of these things were present, like stonewalling. Stonewalling, which is silent treatment, is highly correlated with people who end up divorcing as well.
Now, we spoke about infidelity earlier. Let me just ask you, when trust has been broken through infidelity, is it always possible to rebuild a relationship, and what does that healing process look like?
I don't think that infidelity in a marriage or a relationship is always necessarily a deal breaker for. No, no, it could be a deal breaker for people, but it does not necessarily mean that people cannot bounce back from that and end up with a much better relationship than the one they had before. But there's a lot of work that needs to go into that. It's the capacity to forgive, the capacity for the person who's cheated to be really honest and do the work that they need to do if they don't know how they ended up doing whatever it is that they did, the cheating part. People can recover from that. People can repair broken trust, but the mechanisms, I don't think that the person who has cheated should have the moral high ground to determine the timeline, how long the person who's been cheated on should take to heal. But the
Mm,
person who has been cheated on can also not indefinitely hold this gun over the cheater's head and make them pay for the rest of their life. If you decide that you're going to give it a try, for the person who's been cheated on, then at some point you would have to do some work on yourself to be able to move past that and to create the repair. For the one who has cheated, you have to sit with the discomfort of hearing things without feeling defensive and without trying to shut down the other person, but that needs to be negotiated. If you cannot do it on your own, that's the time that you actually seek couples therapy to be able to see how to move on and how to bounce back from that.
yeah. And just finally, looking ahead, what conversations should society be having about marriage to better prepare future couples?
I think several conversations. One of the biggest one is why. Why do I want to get married? The other why is, why do I want to get married to this specific person? What is it that I'm actually looking for in a partner? What is it that I realistically can bring to the marriage? Who am I? How much of myself do I know to be able to get into this thing? What are the traumas and situations that I carry that I may not be aware of? Um, I think it's an ongoing conversation. What are my needs? How do I want to be loved? What are my partner's needs? How do they want to be loved? So I don't think it's one specific issue that we need to look at. It's several issues, and it will differ from couple to couple. And I would highly recommend that people go for premarital counseling,
Mm,
as well as going for individual therapy, not because you have problems, but to go to individual therapy to just get to know who you are.
yeah.
You don't have to go to therapy because you have issues. You can go to therapy to really discover who you are, to understand yourself better, so that you know who you're taking to these relationships or marriages.